So I've noticed a serious challenges with some of our staffs at the large aquaculture in terms of a few things, especially around fish nutrition and feeding. So just to say that it's important for staffs that are into fish farming to have a fundamental understanding of these things to be useful. So I'm going to give a quick short talk to try and explain some of the things that everyone needs to know. So by and large, we are a catfish farm. Yeah, therefore we farm catfish. And catfish is generally a carnivorous fish, meaning they feed on other animals in the wild, so smaller animals in the food chain. That's different from tilapia. So that's the first basic thing to understanding the biology of catfish being a carnivorous fish. The most popular breeds or species, that is the Clarias gariepinus. The one in the wild is the Heterobranchus longiphilis. Yeah, mostly in the wild. And then you have the hybrid, which is when you crossbreed Clarias gariepinus and Heterobranchus. And that's biology. Now, in farmed catfishing, what we do is we raise them in the farm. Therefore, they don't have the food chain to which to look for food, and you feed them with pillated feeds. Now, this you can buy or you can make. In our farm, we make this feed using a formula. And the formula we use is our staffs have access to. But basically, in terms of the formula, you have protein, you have carbohydrate, you have fat, you have premix, and you have things like that. And your protein would be animal and plant. And so, of course, main ingredients will be fish meal, soya bean meal, blood meal, and things like that, made into a formula. We have a formula for the farm, which our staffs have access to. So please ask internally and you would be given access to the formula so you understand it. Now, with that said, one of the fundamental things to understand about livestock rearing is something called FCR. And FCR simply means feed conversion ratio. And in essence, what this means is how does the livestock or whatever it's farm or animal convert food to flesh. And centrally, FCR is 1. So FCR can move from 1 to 1.5. So in between, of course, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, and it can go the other way. It could be 0.9, 0.8, like that. Now, in practical terms, what it means is if you give 1 gram of that feed, the organism converts it to 1 gram of flesh over a given time. Therefore, if you're farming catfish to table size, a few things to understand about FCR. So the very first thing is, if you have, for the purpose of calculation, your target is 1,000 kg, 1,000 kilogram of fish, which is 1 ton. You need to feed the fish at least 1,000 kilograms of feed, assuming the FCR is 1:1, over a given period of time. And that given period of time in catfish farming is anything between 3 to 6 months. For the purpose of farming, 6 months is the more realistic number. So therefore, you need to provide your fish with about 1,000 kilograms of feed over a 6 months period. Now understand, with every organism there are stages of growth. So if you look at catfish, you would have fries. Fries will become fingerlings. Fingerlings will become juveniles. Juveniles will become, if you like, grow out. And grow out will become table size. And table size will become broodstock. So the proportionate growth, the feed that you would put per number, is going to be proportionate to the mass of the fish. So if you have, of course, 1,000 fries, and the mass of each of that fry will be proportionate to the feed. So what that means is 1,000 fries would probably weigh 100 grams. So you give 100-gram feed. For most feeds made, formulated by like the business like ours, would have an FCR of around 1.2. So what that means is, instead of 1,000, you probably need 1,200 over this given period of time. So it's the same thing. So if you have like a farm like ours that has a capacity of around 20,000, it means over 6 months we should be looking at 22,000 kg of feed. Now this is important so you understand planning for ingredients. So ingredients like fish meal, maize, soybeans, blood meal, and the likes. With this, as a manager, you can say to yourself, I would have an idea of how much of this I would need to run a farm that is 20,000 capacity over a 6-month period. So it's very important to understand. So I'll go over this summary. So in catfish farming, the first thing to understand is biology. So catfish are carnivorous if you look at the food chain, and that means they would in the wild generally feed on other smaller animals. And if you read about it, that's phytoplankton. Now, having said that, the other thing is the key species of catfish that you have, African catfish in Nigeria, is Clarias gariepinus, Heterobranchus longiphilis, and the hybrid, like I said, is crossbreeding. Now, in farmed catfishing, you feed the fish with pillated feeds, meaning you would formulate it. And I've talked about the formulation. It's an internal formula that we use, and that's percentage wise. And then the next thing to understand is the feed conversion ratio, which is the rate at which the organism, any organism, all of the fish have feed conversion ratio, all of the livestock, goat, cow, whatever, how they convert food to flesh. Yeah, and you start at 1, so it could be 1.2, 1.31. The more efficient it is, the more the fish conversion ratio moves to the left. That tends to be more for commercial. So for most locally made by the farm, it will be around between 1.1 to 1.4. The next thing is the total mass of what you want to be feeding. So when you, and over what time? Like I said, generally you'll be over 3 to 6 months, more realistically 6 months. So, and then I talked about remembering the stages of, catfish growth, from fries, fingerlings, juveniles, grow out, and then table size, and then you have broodstock. And I talked about specifically for our farm, which is a 20,000 capacity, meaning we will be looking at 22,000 kg of feed over a 6 months period. All right.